Hey, welcome back to the AwwShift podcast. As always, I'm your host, Anthony Trucks, and I'm excited to bring today's guest to you. This is a person that I didn't even know, but I guess we had interviewed years ago at the beginning of their journey to what they do now. They're the host of the Storybox podcast. They've interviewed amazing people all over the world. Their podcast is was at one point number four in the world in 2021. It's called the Storybox podcast. It's awesome, man. There's this individuals at like 800 plus episodes, and what they do is they share with the world different ways to look at the world through their life experience of at one point being suicidal, not having much dialed into their life, and then even past that, finding ways to progress out and serve the world in ways that they wish they would have been served. So in this episode today, we unpack a lot of this person's story, why they are who they are, but also for you to get nuggets of how do you get past the hard parts? How do you garner the tools you need to be an amazing force in this world, in this life? So if you listen to Jay Fantom, who's my guest today, understand it's going to be a great episode to fill your soul. Also, as you know, I'm a big proponent of making sure you focus on getting your mind dialed in, right? There's something to having your brain locked in, ready to roll when it's time to roll, because some of the things that we do in life, it's not a matter of do I have the energy, but do the willpower, do I have the willpower, the mental focus. And that comes from what you fuel your brain and your body with. And I'm a big proponent of a product called Magic Mind, which I've been taking religiously for like a year now, or maybe even more than a year. And I love it because it helps me focus in the realm of what I do best, which is think, process, operate, and share. And if you're a person that uses your mind for anything, I don't care if it's video games, if it's writing, if it's speaking, whatever it is, your mind is a tool that allows you to be you. So you better fuel that thing. And if you want to be able to have more focus and more amazing stuff going on, you got to check this stuff out. And by the time you listen to this podcast, version 4.0 is out, which means it's got some cool things it does for fast absorption, better taste. Like, it's awesome. So go to magicmind.co/shift, or go to magicmind.co and use the code AwwShift. That's it. Let's get into the episode. Hey, we are diving right in. You already know who this person is and what they're about. So, hey, how you doing, Jay?
Good, Anthony. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm on the other side and northern part of the world. Right, you're in us, you're down under, and I'm up here in California. And you got summertime, I think, creeping in, don't you?
We do, actually. The
Yeah,
last couple of days has been anywhere upwards of 30 degrees, which has been glorious if you're a summer sort of person, and if you're
yeah,
not, then it's terrible.
yeah. I get
So
it, and
I'm
I love
a winter baby, but I've been to the
really.
beach the last couple of days. Yeah,
Okay,
um, I've been getting my tan on. As a white boy, you kind of need a bit of
you got to
tan.
do it, bro.
Not being
I've debated
super
on a
white.
10. Yeah, I'm
Yes.
getting it, man. I think I'm good. God gave me a built in, so I'm solid.
You're one of the lucky ones, man. Unfortunately for me, when I take off my shirt, it blinds people. So
Yeah.
I've got to be careful of that.
You know, want to hear some TMI for some reason? So I'm a black guy. For some reason, like, my butt is darker than the rest of my body, and it gets no sun. It gets no sun. It's the weirdest. It's just darker skin there, I guess. We better sit on it all day. Who knows? Hey, so let's dive into this
It's a
conversation,
great
man.
start, man.
Yeah, I got to roll. We got to rock with it sometimes, dude. My team's gonna be like, "Did you really just talk about your butt on?" Yeah,
Trust
yeah.
me,
Oh
man, I
well.
couldn't go somewhere else completely.
Yeah, let's
Talking about where the
come
sun
back
don't
to
shine.
logic for a second. So here's the question I always do the podcast dog with. I'm walking around town. I'm down under in Australia. My horrible Australian accent. I'm down in your area. I'm at a coffee shop. It's a cool looking dude with some slick back hair. It's you. You just got done with a run. You sit down next to me. I don't know you. You turn and feel compelled to speak to me. In your opinion, why should I listen to you?
Oh, that's a good one, actually. Really good. Depends on the kind of question that I want to ask you, and if you
Okay.
seem like an interesting person to me. Like when you sit down, what am I curious about when I see you on the outside? Is there something about you? Like, are you wearing an interesting watch? Do you have a tattoo that I might want to inquire about? What clothes are you wearing that intrigues me? What
Mhm.
kind of, if we're at a cafe, what kind of coffee order did you order, and why did you order that? For me, my mind would just go to all those kinds of things. But if you were to be interested in me, I would want to ask you a question that would sort of be deep and meaningful at the very, very start. And that usually comes from me looking over you because I don't know you
No,
from
man.
far as
Mm-hmm.
or it could just be a random question that I want to ask. There's been a couple of times where I've actually done that.
Yeah.
Uh, just been on a train somewhere and just asked them a random question. One in particular was, what did I ask them? I asked them, so do you have any regrets in life? Straight up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would you do that when you're on a train?
Yeah.
Don't
For any
know a
reason.
person as far as soap. But funny enough, it got a conversation going because it made that person think, and it kind of jolted them a little bit. They're like, why
Yeah.
is this random person asking me
Yeah. Some deep
if I've got
questions.
any regrets in life?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just that was an interesting dialogue that I had with them. But in essence, man, I hope that answered your question in
Yeah,
a
no, that's a
roundabout
good question.
way.
That's a good way to roll into it too, because I think there leads to be some things I'm seeing as your persona from that. And when you started talking about that, you ever hear about that guy that used to drive a taxi, and he would actually purposely ask questions of his passengers, and in doing so, he said people would pour things out to him he'd never heard. He said one dude admitted to killing his sister or something crazy.
Whoa.
Yeah, like nutso stuff. I can't recall who it was. I saw him on a TV show. I'm like, this dude, he's an interesting, because I mean, now you have all these secrets you're talking about on the internet. You probably shouldn't do that. Like,
I
especially
wonder
if you,
what question he asked him to get that
I
response.
know, like, right? That's what my brain, because as a podcaster, I'm like, man, I wonder what you do to get someone that open. But I think it was like the anonymity. They're in a car, like they don't know your name. Like you just say, hey, taxi, right? Literally, I don't know who you are, especially if you pay with cash. Anyway, so what I am hearing as a human from you though is you have this natural, I think too, one, you have a curiosity, which is pretty cool. But I think it also leads into a desire to go past the norm of discomfort, which is talk to a stranger. So, we're raised as kids, don't talk to strangers, right? Did you at some point in time like break that rule and it was just natural? Did you always have like this desire to know what's going on? Where was that kind of innately built?
Well, I was always a very curious-minded kid. I would always go up to adults. Never got on well with kids my own age. I
Mm,
used to go up to adults and ask them these weird, wild, and sometimes outrageous questions.
mhm.
And I think most of the time they would annoy the living daylights out of him because they'd be like, why is this kid asking me this kind of question? He's like 4 or 5 years old. Like, what's going on? One of the things I used to say to my mum was, why do people believe in Santa Claus? He's not real. And then secondly, sorry if people listening to this believe in Santa
Yeah.
Claus or anything like
Yeah.
that.
My
Spoiler
bad.
alert.
Yeah.
Or why do people believe that Easter is about the Easter Bunny? I think they're taking it completely away from the real meanings of why we celebrate those two times of the year.
Mm,
And then for me as a young kid, I'll tell you this one story. We lived on a cul-de-sac and we're at the very bottom of the cul-de-sac. And at the very top of the cul-de-sac, there was a man that had apparently been accused of kidnapping. He was a quote kidnapper. And
mhm,
apparently he was under house arrest or something like that.
mhm.
And anyway, I was curious and I didn't believe my mum who had told me, I think, that this was the case. So one day I decided to get on my bike and go and ride up to the house, knock on the door, and see if there was actually a kidnapper there. And lo and behold, an older lady answered the door, and I remember just asking her, "Does a kidnapper live here?" And she had the wise intuition to send me home.
Yeah.
And I remember going to my mum and telling her what I did, and I got into so much trouble,
Oh
man.
yeah. 'Cause what if she
And
was like, yes, I am, snatch. Like, you're
yes.
done.
Oh my goodness. She's like, this is the reason why if there is a possibility that you won't come back, there is a
Mhm,
danger there. This is the reason why we don't necessarily talk to strangers.
mhm.
But they, in essence, after that, they had the ability, even though I got in trouble, they still enable me to be curious in other ways. Not necessarily going up to the strangers that look like they were dark people or something like that. They look dodgy, but they were enabling me to ask a lot of questions to people that they trusted and respected, which they in turn helped to foster this genuine curiosity inner child that I just continue to unravel as I got older. Yeah, so the ability for me to ask questions and be curious, I think, has been ingrained in me as a child. And then just having this love for stories and people and where we come from, why we do certain things. And I would always have my head in books too. So it would be hard to get my head out of books.
Non-stop, huh? It's not a typical thing. It's not normal. And now you're a person that shows up in your podcast. You talk to a lot of people, right? There's a large jump there. So from going from a kid who was, so we'll call it curious, head down in the books, what was your journey to the point of doing what you do now? To have, I guess, one, a desire to help people at the level you do, and then two, what prompted this direction of profession to be the way you serve people?
Well, to be honest with you, Anthony, I never thought that I would be doing what I'm doing today and serving in the way that I'm serving, because I wanted to be a filmmaker for as long as I can remember growing up. For me, filmmaking was my career path. It was my identity, and I attached myself to doing film. I wanted to be the next Steven Spielberg. So everything that I did, everything I talked about was all revolving around film. I would be known as DJ underscore director Jay. In school, that was on the back of my year 12 jersey, but everyone knew me as the director. Someone that would just, go up to find stories randomly and then just turn them into a movie that had a meaningful message behind it. So I think part of me wanted to sort of help the world understand different values, the kind of values that I grew up with. And I was very much aware of certain things that were going on in the world and all the hate, the violence, and the disdain for just human beings and others. And I guess part of me wanted to help that or help people understand that you don't have to hate, and why not do that through the power of film. But it always came back to its essence of storytelling. And then life didn't really work out the way I wanted it to work out. It
No, you don't say.
a different way. And, I surprised I'm not a filmmaker today. I ended up going down a completely different path. I've done many, many different jobs, from looking after kids in after school care to working with disabled people. I was in real estate for a period of time while I was trying to get my film career off the ground for a third time. It was like there was this gigantic block, as if God was trying to lead me somewhere where he wanted me to lead, but I kept fighting. And once I finally surrendered to him, I've never actually explained it like this before.
Yeah, tell me, because it's like I look for the AwwShift moments and what we got. So I feel like we're coming up on one. Like, what was the moment that kind of unfolded here?
It was really me in 2019 being absolutely broken to the point of getting on my hands and knees and feeling like that I could no longer go anymore, could no longer do life anymore. And there was an attempt to end my life in June of 2019. And once again, I say that I talk about it in my book, but God intervened in that instance, and he saved me from taking my own life. And he then, not long after that, put me on the best path possible, the path that I have on the book, the path of an eagle, one that when I'm knocked down, I don't stay down. And there's been so many times that I can recount for you, Anthony, of just moments in my life where I was beaten down, and times when I didn't stay down, but I didn't realize that I was getting back up and moving forward. And it was,
something happened, but like you started moving without realizing you were actually getting back up, so to speak.
Yeah, that was it. Like, I didn't consciously know what I was really doing, which is interesting because now I have a lot more introspection and I'm a lot more conscious of when I am knocked down by a challenge, I choose to get back up and then continue to move forward. And the way that I would get back up before is completely different to the way I now get back up.
Yeah.
There was not like this perspective of I want to learn through the challenge. Like I never got excited when a challenge came my way. Now I get excited because I realize just how important they are for my growth and my strength. So I guess that was where I was thinking, but now it's very interesting because I think through challenges you learn so much about yourself. And if you want, I believe that we're given free will, the ability for us to choose.
I agree.
And most people choose to stay stuck in a moment of pain because misery loves comfort, right?
Sure.
And it's such a moment where it becomes all they know. And they're scared to get back up because they don't know what it's going to look like when they get back up. There's this fear attached to it. And growing up, I had that exact same fear. But I would just get up, but I don't think I really dealt with the actual issues properly. And it's only when I was actually beaten down in 2019 was I then able to really revisit a lot of the areas of my life that there was some kind of wound there that hadn't been fully healed. And I could go back and I could fully heal it so that made me a little bit stronger for the next one and then the next one and then the next one. And it became this progress of what I was doing was I was really just diving in and asking myself all the tough questions that I had avoided for such a long time. And I know a lot of people avoid them too.
We do,
so
we do.
The catalyst for everything and me starting the journey of doing the podcast and then the career that I'm doing at the moment was I was being abused in my job. I lost my German Shepherd of 11 years. The girl that I had placed my entire worth and identity and purpose into, she ended the relationship.
And all of it, man.
I just
the
went
perfect
through
storm.
Perfect storm, but I needed all of that to show me exactly the kind of man that God wanted me to be, not who I wanted to be, but who God needed me to be. But I just didn't realize it then. And then
How do you realize that? Because there's a lot to like what you're saying in terms of, because I think a lot of us sometimes float in the painful places longer than we need to without trying to get out of them, right? So you may have that, somebody had a girlfriend left, a dog died, and they kind of just, right, they get funky. They do that for months, sometimes years. So for you, you're saying a perfect storm hit. You could have sat there. I mean, you could have obviously taken, a direction that would have been more detrimental, and something could have bad happened. But at some point, I'm sure you got to a point where you go, okay, this sucks. I don't like this, but I'm going to move now in this positive direction. While you've alluded to saying like, I kind of did it on accident, there had to have been at some point some, I guess, intentional action, right?
There was, and I was in misery for months. I was suffering through depression. And like I said before, there was an attempt to take my life months after. But then I was, like I said, I was being abused in my job in real estate, and it was time for me to leave. And so I was looking for another job, and I ended up being in the office of this large recruitment company. We did a group interview. I was sort of like the favorite, even though I didn't really want the job. But I remember doing this sit-down 10-minute interview with the CEO of the whole company, and he asked me this one question. He goes, "Why do you want to work here?" And I responded with, "I want to help people." And I didn't realize the full extent of my response to that question in that moment. It was only after, when I was on the train ride home, that I really started to think about, okay, Jay, you've just said you want to help people. I mean, you're helping people get a house in real estate. You could help people get a job, but there had to be something deeper to that. And I got home, I got on my hands and knees after I'd done a lot of thinking and realizing that my life wasn't going anywhere good because I had remained in that state of pain for longer than I should have. And I remember getting home, getting on my hands and knees and asking God to really just change my life for the better and to give me direction, proper direction. And it wasn't long after that he really showed me who I am, my purpose, which is to be alive and to live this life the best way I can, to distinguish between I am versus I do. See, a lot of people, they get them confused. They think that who they are revolves in what they do.
True.
Rather than who you are has got nothing to do with what you do. That is a separate thing entirely. Who you are is reflected with your character, your beliefs, your values, all those things. You take who you are into what you do and not the other way around. And that's an important difference that I didn't realize for a long time until that very moment. It was like this light bulb just all appeared for me, Anthony.
Well, what if you want to, because this leads me to some of my same like identity work, and I like the way this discussion's going. But what if you're a person that gets to a point where you go, hey, this is who I am, right? I don't like who I am. These are the things that I do that's led to this. And I go, okay, great. Well, I got to get to become another I am. How do you become the I am when you know that the things that you have to do, the I do, aren't things you typically do? Does that make sense?
So who you are, the I am.
Yeah, the I am. It does the do, right? So let's say like I'm a person that happens to, I'm a banker. I'm a Wall Street banker, right? And I go, here's what I do. And I say I'm a Wall Street banker, but then who I am, I don't like who I am. But I go, I want to be somebody else, but I'm doing these things. You go, let me separate the two. Okay, I'm going to stop doing the things I do, and I want to be a better who I am. But then people go, well, dang, but I haven't done anything to become the who I am. Or I have nothing to anchor myself to besides that. Because most people, the logic you just said makes sense. I am not what I do, but then, well, how do I create who I am outside of what I do?
Well, that's an interesting line of thought as well. And I love it because for me, I believe like for the longest time, I thought that my whole identity was in filmmaking, right? So everything that I did was revolving around film. And when that didn't happen, there was this break. There was this, I guess you could call it a shift, right?
Yeah.
Of me realizing that, okay, well, I'm not a filmmaker now. So who am I and what do I do? But I believe we always have a choice and we can always pivot and shift into something completely different. Your life is not solely based on one thing that you do for the rest of your life. You can choose to change. I'm sure you've experienced this, Anthony, in your life. I mean, going from the NFL to doing what you're doing now, being a coach. I mean, you can change whenever you want to change.
I had like 3 changes to get to here, man. It wasn't like a straight shot to this. it was a journey.
Everyone wants a straight shot, right? Everyone wants, they've got this perfect vision of what it would be like to be a certain kind of person and doing this thing, right? Society has conditioned a lot of people to think, you go to university, you study hard, you get this job, and that's going to be the only job that you stay in for the rest of your life. But a lot of people, they do it and they feel miserable. And there's some people that don't feel miserable too. But for the ones that do feel miserable, what's to stop you from changing that? You can change that. You split your whole self, the I am, and you find and try different things. And until you find something, because this is what I had to do, find different things. And sometimes there are those little threads, right, that lead you to the thing that actually you're supposed to be doing in life. The one that actually gives you a sense of fulfillment as well. And that was like for me. So once I figured out this is who I am, I want to help people. I want to be of service. I want to be alive and live this life the best way I possibly can. I figured out my values. I figured out my beliefs. This is really who I am. Now, let's try different things. Let's take who I am into all these different career paths and see which one really aligns with who I am. And if nothing aligned with who I am, then try a different thing. Keep on trying. There's so many jobs or careers out there for people to try. And until you find something that works for you, then keep looking. is what I'm saying.
I mean, you got to lead with them.
I've done so many jobs, man, like going from working with disabled people, which was a really, really rewarding job. And I loved it, from real estate. Each job taught me something unique about people and about life, which then helped me be who I am as a person. Does that all make sense?
100%. It's like pretty much saying if I'm going to be a chef, I should probably travel around and take up different, places of restaurants and types of food in different areas. And then at some point I'm going to be a chef because I can do different things. But if all you make is spaghetti, it's going to be kind of bland after a while, bro.
Going back to spaghetti.
So I brought that in. Hey, man, it's like I got skills on this side of the microphone,
Nice,
dude. I
nice
think
one.
not my first rodeo, bro. Yeah, no, I get it though, because I think sometimes here's the thing. When I was told as a kid, we have a situation where as children we're told the world is your oyster, do whatever you want. And if you have like blinders on, they're wide. You can see everything. As we get older and do more things, we get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter to where all we do is go, no, I'm a dad and I have this job and I go here and this is all I do. And then we forget after a while that we're supposed to be able to see everything. And what we notice is life doesn't feel fulfilling. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm not able to see the bigger picture and I feel a little bit empty. What is there? And it's like you don't have to go and change who you are per se. Just open up more and see more of what you can enter into. And now I
Yeah.
can pursue more things and have more joy and have more experience in life.
Some people, they may already know who they are. That's a fantastic thing. But the job that they're currently doing is making them feel miserable.
Mm-hmm.
So, like what you just said, you can always change your career. And a lot of people think, well, you don't know my situation, Jay. Financially speaking, it's not viable for me to change. And well, you can always figure out. There's always some like creative way where you can save some money. You can do things, or
Yeah.
you can do a passion project on the side. You can always find things that will bring a sense of fulfillment to your life. If you already know who you are, if you already know what you want to do in life, then that's fantastic. But for the
Yeah.
people that don't know, there is always options out there, and don't be so subjected to one thing. Like I remember having a conversation not long ago with Gabriel Conte, and he's like a famous YouTuber and quite popular online.
Mm-hmm.
And he remembers having a conversation with himself and asking himself, so if all this was to go away tomorrow, would I be okay with it? And he's worked incredibly hard to get to where he is today. It didn't happen overnight, right? And he answered me honestly, and he says, I would not be happy with it. But in saying that, even though I'm not happy with it, what am I going to do?
That's the difference. Yeah.
And move forward in my life and then get my career. So it's the journey of life is you're going to have those down moments in your career, in your life, in your personal things, and you're going to have your ups in your careers, in your career. But don't be so blinded to be focused on one thing. And for those people that are focused on one thing and you know that is right for you, fantastic. I'm not saying you need to change it, but for those that don't feel that way, you can change.
Go see, man. I think there's something too, finding out what else is possible. It's crazy because people hear these things, man, and it always throws me because they'll hear it and then they won't do it. And then it's like the evil we know is better than the evil we don't, right? There's this natural sense of, but you know what they don't stop doing? Oh, they don't stop complaining. Oh, they'll not. I don't like my life. I don't like my life. I don't like this. I don't like my life. We change something. Oh, I can't, but I don't like my life. I don't like my life. Well, if the pants you were wearing didn't fit you, you don't just keep complaining about the pants not fitting. You get out of the pants and you get different pants. Like it's pretty logical, but humans don't do this. What are your thoughts when it comes to, like, we'll take this line of thought and go, I'm gonna try something out. What about finding someone who's done it before, finding a community of people to support you, finding someone that'll nudge you? Because sometimes we do need to have outside sources feed us inside to be able to do something different on the outside of our life, like mentors, coaches, individuals, books, that we can read, like your book. I would love to know what the title means. You mentioned it earlier, The Way of the Eagle, and I did not unpack it then, but I think now's a good time to go with the thought of getting other mentors and people, reading books per se, and then where yours fits into that.
So The Way of the Eagle is actually the title of my second book, or another book. So this one is called The Path of an Eagle, How to Overcome and Lead After Being Knocked Down. And really, for those people that feel stuck or feel like they can't move forward, I really believe that when others see someone else that has been through struggle, that has been through a great deal of pain, and they can see how they've been able to get back up and move forward in their life, it gives them permission to sort of do the same thing. It's that vulnerability and that level of connection that they can see. It kind of inspires them as well. Like when I see you, Anthony, and I see your life and what you've been able to do, overcome and achieve, number one, I learn not to go down some of the paths that you've been down. And number two, this is the kind of man you've become. That inspires me to do the same thing or something similar in my own life. Create the life that I want to create. Look at Anthony. He's created this life. He's happy now. He told me that he's happy. And why is that? Because he's got a good family behind him. He's working on his relationships. He's working on all these things, which is a fantastic thing. So if I can see that and I look at my own life, I know we're not meant to compare, but we look inwards and we say, well, if Anthony's doing that, what's to stop me from doing it too? What is to stop you from doing it? If you really ask yourself those questions and you think, well, not much, because if Anthony can do it, so can I. I mean, for me, when I started my podcast or even when I wrote this book, I never thought it'd be possible to get a book published. But yet here we are. It's published because I made the decision of, once God showed me that, Jay, I want you to write a book, and he showed me the story that he wanted me to say. Same deal with the podcast. It's a similar thing. Then I needed to take some action, take some small steps forward. Okay, what does that look like? I've got to find an editor, find a publisher, find all these things. With the podcast setting, you've got to have guests. So where do you find guests? Research online. You're taking those small little steps that will eventually compound and build up to something a lot greater later on. A lot of people, they complicate things so much. They look at where a person is at right now and they look at the macro first and they don't look at the micro. You need to look at the micro first, which will then lead to the macro. All good and well to see the macro and be admired and think, oh, that's fantastic, but never think that you can't ever get there.
I agree, man. Because if somebody's already got there, it's doable, right? It's ideas. If another human being's gotten there, then it's a matter of just figuring out what they did. And then, there are going to be things that are different to you that may be assets to you to help you get there faster, but there may be hindrances you don't use. And I think that's where you got to plug in the gaps of other people, other ways, trial and error. And I also think that also ties to looking at everything I saw, like it's a toolbox, right? There's going to be this problem and it needs a certain amount of tools. And if I've gone through things prior to this moment, I have more tools. So I can fix this easier. If not, I got to go to the tool store, we'll call it the hardware store, get a tool, and it takes longer. I got to go figure that whole thing out to fix this situation. But if I've been going through life, stepping into situations where I can actually garner new tools, as I go farther on the pathway, I can fix things faster, navigate them quicker. Doesn't mean that they remove the problem, still exists, right? It's just I got a tool for it. It makes it a little bit easier. And so that's kind of the big thing, I think. So unpack what the path of an eagle is, right? So I get to the book, I get the concept of, what if I pick this book up, when I'm done reading, I put that bad boy down, what will I have as a base of knowledge or knowing now?
Well, my hope is that you will understand, number one, your worth. Number two, that your identity is not found in what you do. Number three, how you're able to see challenges from a very different perspective in life. From a young person that, like, I'm 26, so I've still got a lot of life to live, I hope.
Yeah, you do.
Lord willing. So, I don't know everything, and I don't claim that I know everything in the book. I'm still learning. And what I say is, here is the things that I've been able to learn as a result of going through such challenges like sexual abuse, like addiction, like depression, like traumas, medical traumas, like understanding what happens when you've got a giant ego that can cost you your life. There's been 4 near-death experiences that I've had in my life. I've had all these incredible experiences, and I vulnerably share parts of my story with people in the hope that they will see it and learn something for themselves, that it will enable them to see the challenge that is before them, maybe, that, hey, if Jay can be like the eagle because we were created to soar, not to be stuck on the ground, that when we do get knocked down, then we can learn what we need to learn in the pain and in the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a result of that, we become a little bit stronger. So then we can spread our mighty metaphorical wings. We can get back up and we can get back in the air and start soaring once more. So really the path of an eagle is this unique healing path that I offer to people. It comes from Isaiah 40:31. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will then mount up on the wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that for me is my live verse. I'm going to get it on my arm.
Yeah.
That's it. Because
Put your name on you so you know it's real.
It's going to be a perfect reminder, man. And my understanding of that is going back to the original thing of if I was to sit down in a cafe somewhere and someone was to see Isaiah 40:31 or on my other arm an eagle, would it prompt them to ask the question, why do you have that? What's the meaning? What does that verse say? And why the eagle? What's the point of that?
Yeah,
so
I like that.
That's really what it is, man. And I do it through the power of stories to make it interesting, and it's how people learn.
I like it. And obviously the story is a big piece of it because you have a Storybox podcast, and it's like that's something I've been on. I was, gracious. You allowed me to come and hang out, man. I appreciate that. Share with people what the Storybox podcast is all about, right? What's the heart of it? Because we had a great time. I chatted, shared my story, did some good unpacking of stuff. But in your words, what is the Storybox podcast all about?
Well, it's funny, man, because I actually went back to my archive and I realized that we had a conversation all the way back when I first started.
Really?
And we did, yeah. I completely had forgotten about it. And here I am,
man,
looking at it and thinking, that is so cool.
Yeah.
And I remember watching it and looking at it and thinking, okay, I understand why I didn't release this. Mainly because I didn't know what I was talking about back then. I was so nervous and so green. And there were so many interruptions that went on that I felt bad for you. And I was like, okay, I don't really get this whole shift thing. It was just not, I needed a bit of learning.
I get it. Hey, I appreciate the honesty, man. I do so many podcasts, dude. I forget about the ones I'm on. So it's a good thing, I guess, that I totally forgot about it too. Just like you.
And then now, many years later, we're able to sit down and have a proper conversation that I was able to ask you questions that I was genuinely interested in and curious about and react to them properly and not get lost along the way, which is what I did before. So the Storybox, man, it was originally about, and it still is, helping people realize their worth and reach their full potential through the power of stories. And this whole idea of unboxing things and aspects and really a person's story that someone may not have heard before, or things that they may not have publicly shared or whatever it is, all in the hopes that it helps someone that may be struggling, that they're not alone, that there are other people out there that are just like you, that we're in this together. We're here to help one another. There's a sense of community, a sense of bonding, a sense of belonging as well, and all encompassing this brilliant part of life of who we are is our story. This is it, and I loved your story. I loved being able to hear you share where you've come from to where you are now and all the in-betweens, ins and outs. And I started it November 15th, 2019.
Wow.
And I celebrated 3 years yesterday of unboxing stories, over 800 something plus people. And I've been
803 years going. That makes about sense. If you did like a couple a week for sure. More than a couple. That's active, man. That's more. It's like 3 a week-ish.
Yeah, it was actually more than that at one stage, and I'm averaging about 5-6 a week. So it's probably 800 is just a generalized number. It's probably a lot more than that.
Yeah.
But
that's good, man.
It's just, I've learned so much, and I'm still learning so many things. All the while, I hope that the show is benefiting people in a big way. You know,
Yeah.
some of the people that I've been blessed and fortunate enough to have conversations with, I never thought I'd ever have a conversation with them. People that I grew up seeing on movies, and I'd watch them or listen to them on other people's podcasts for years, and
Yeah.
now I've got access to them. It's just unreal, man. So, I'm eternally grateful for it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's good, man. I think that's kind of the idea. It's actually an example of doing the things you're talking about, right? It's the example of being a person that's out in the world, creating something cool, doing something unique. And I think there's something within that, because most people will go, I'm not like that guy. I haven't done that. I can't. But yeah, but you at one point weren't doing that, couldn't do that, so to speak. Like, it takes time to figure it all out. And so I love that you kind of stayed the course at 800. That is big. That is big, man. So what's the next stage for you then? As we come to the end of this year, we kind of lead into a call 2023. Like, what's the podcast and the books? Like, what's the next stage of how you'll serve the humanity?
I'm working on another book at the moment. It's really encompassing this whole idea of unboxing stories. So I'm trying to help people understand how they can unbox their own story and not have me unbox it for them, but really show them through what I've been able to learn on the show by unboxing other people's stories. This is why your story really matters. And, you know, as human beings, some of us don't actually think or believe that it is okay to be human. Like, they don't even know what that really looks like or means, and they think that their story doesn't have value. But I'm here to show them that it does have value, and I'm going to show them why it does.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I'm working on that. I'm very excited about that. The next stage of the show is constantly building. I want to do some some courses for people that encompasses this whole idea of identity as well, and just trying to help people that may be struggling, or if they want to start their own show or do these things. There's a lot that I want to do. I want to start movies again and have this whole message around building on stories and sharing stories and all that stuff. So,
got a lot of things to work, man.
So many things to go, man.
I like it. You got a whole lot of life to live to figure it out. I mean, I'm gonna see you in 10 years, and it'll be something completely different in a good way, though. I think it's the journey of life, is navigating things, figuring them all out. I think it's just a huge puzzle. And if you enjoy puzzles, man, you don't get all frustrated if you don't figure it out the first time around. You go, oh, that didn't fit. Let me try a new piece. And then you start enjoying the process of figuring a puzzle out more than the end result of when it's done. You hate the whole thing. You'll never even finish the puzzle if you hate the puzzle in the first place, the work of it. So I like that, man. Dude, where can people go and get the podcast access, the book access? Where do I send human beings who go, man, I like this guy, I got to get more of him? Where do I put him?
Well, it's called the Storybox Podcast. They can go check out on any podcast platform, wherever they want, whatever suits them. They can go check out the book on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever it is. It's actually available all over the world now. Book Depository. It's called The Path of an Eagle. Just type that in, or even my name should come up.
Yeah.
But the storyboxpodcast.com website, all those wonderful things. Not too hard to find.
Yeah, I mean, it's that thing. And once you go out in the ethers, man, it's you plug a couple words and it shows up. Beautiful. You ready for the final question?
Let's do it, man.
Here we go, man. What promise did God make to the world when he created you?
What promise did God make
to the world, to all of us, when he created you?
Now, that is a good question.
Interesting one, right?
Yeah. I read a quote the other day, and I love it because it resembles my story. And I was actually telling my mum, I'm like, you're going to put this on my tombstone one day, because this is what God put me on this earth for. Here lies a persistent, courageous, authentic storyteller who gave it his all, who lived for Christ, and that was enough. Be blessed.
I like that, man. It's a good example, right? That's the thing that at the end of the day, we all live our lives in ways that are like unique to us, but I think they can also be examples to others. I don't know if the legacy thing bears as much weight for me as my soul. Like, because if you think about it, a couple hundred years, no one's gonna know who I am. We're digging up people and sarcophagi out in Egypt. No one even knows who the people are. Like, so the legacy thing but it's like if I can be an example to those who are in my vicinity while I'm here, I think there's something unique to that. While enjoying my life, not sacrificing my stuff so they could be happy. Yeah, I like that. It's a good example, man. I love it. Dude, any final words you want to leave the audience with, the people who are listening with?
Just want to say you are enough, not because I said so, but because God made you so. And it's time for you to start believing that. If you need any help at all, just reach out to someone you love, you trust, and you respect. If you don't have anyone, by all means, just find someone. Look, there's people out there that love you and they care for you, for sure. Anthony, man, I really do appreciate you, your story, for having me on your show and for allowing me to share a little bit of my story. Thank you.
Oh, man. I appreciate coming and sharing it, bro. Seriously. Those of you guys who are out there in the world hanging out, thank you so much for hanging out with us again. As always, you could have been anywhere watching cat videos or, I don't know, picking your nose in a garden. But you chose to come hang with us, and I appreciate it. If something that was said today by Jay resonated with you, make sure you apply that to your life. And if it's something somebody else could benefit from, simply share the episode. It's an easy way to get the rest of the world to be better, especially the ones closest around you that sometimes are too close to reach. Outside of that, as always, make the most of your AwwShift moments. You can make shift happen. It's Anthony Trucks and Jay Fantom signing off. Hey, thank you for tuning into the AwwShift podcast. I pray that we gave something amazing to your life. And if you found this episode served you in some way, I would love if you could share it with people you know, people you love, as well as your community, because you never know who needs that simple little seed that can grow into something amazing for their life. And the actual training doesn't stop here. If you want your free copy of the show notes sent to you after every episode so you can get the major points consolidated down, simply go to textanthony.com and message the word notes. Till next time, make shift happen.